Afternoon. In this glorious August 8, 2024. A little less smoke in the air and some sunshine. Had a little rain, so hope all is well. Welcome to everybody online. If you're online, audience, welcome. And as always, we'd like to open up with an opening prayer. So volunteers.
Okay, I'll pray. Let us pray.
Thank you, Georgia.
Dear Lord, we just want to take this opportunity to thank you for the day that you have gifted us and for the ability to serve our community on this day. We want to take a moment and lift up those who are emergency responders and firefighters, especially as they're so busy in our region. We just ask for their safety and well-keeping. We also ask for wisdom as we go through this agenda today, that we can serve with, with wisdom and discretion and discernment. And we ask all this in your name. Amen.
All right, thank you, Georgia. As always, our meeting minutes are posted on the Platted Reservation Water Management Board.gov website. So if you need to see those minutes, please go there. Conflicts of interest. Any potential conflicts of interest? Ken?
No.
George?
No.
Roger?
No.
Georgia?
No.
And none here, so thank you. And attendance, please.
Clayton Knight,
Here.
Roger Noble,
Here.
George Sneeze,
Here.
George McLeod,
Here.
Ken Pitt,
Here.
and Shane Henderson. Present.
Thank you all. So as we prepare to adopt the agenda, I think Roger had a couple possible changes and I had a question on one thing, so go ahead.
All
Roger.
right. So what I would suggest is that I think it's important that we get through a couple of administrative things. So number 6, which is the Office of the Water Engineers Report, I recommend that becomes number 3. Board business, which is number 5. I thought that should be number 4. That seems like it's a pretty simple one to take care of after reviewing what's in our packet. That would then, number 3 would become number 5, and number 4 would become number 6. And finally, it just, I don't know what everybody's schedule is today, if we have to be done at 5 or not, but there is an executive session on here. So if we need to be out of here by 5, then I think we should at least adjourn at 4 o'clock to allow for at least 1 hour for the executive session.
Okay.
And I actually do have to leave at 5 again.
Comments on Roger's suggested changes? Ken?
No.
Good with them?
Yes.
Good. Georgia?
Sure.
And then I had a question, Ethan or James, did I miss the minutes for the July 24 meeting? Are they on here?
That's on the board business, new number 4.
Ah, okay. It is in there. All right. All right, with those changes, if you're ready to approve the agenda, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Has changed.
Yes, has changed.
Motion by George,
Second.
second by Ken. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay. That is our agenda. Public comments for items not on the agenda. So anybody from the public, if you have a comment, anybody online?
Anyone online would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak. I'm seeing no one on.
Seeing no comments, we'll close that part of the agenda and move on to our new item number 3, Office of Water Engineer. Former number 6, number 3.
Mr. Chairman, board members, so just double check, this is coming before the board business? Board business is number 4 now?
That's what we said, yeah.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman, board members, I have, to let you know, we have an update about the building RFP. Ms. Sidney, would you mind giving us a quick update? With the reference?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Board. I recently reached out to several newspapers to post our RFP. And so far, we have been in the Daily Interlake, Missoulian, and Helena IR for the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. On average, it ran about $170 for all 3 each.
Okay,
Remind me again what RFP means.
The building proposal.
Okay.
that's the request for proposal for doing initial building design, I think so. So that's still out. That was, those dates were
The 8th, 15th,
Which month?
22nd, and 29th for all 3
which month?
of this month.
August,
The 8th, 15th and 22nd?
22nd
And
and
29th.
and 29th. So
Yeah.
we're still running. Getting any responses?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Today is the first day that it has ran in all 3.
Okay,
And we have reached out to the Cargusta and we haven't heard from them yet.
all right, guys. Any questions, comments on that? Who did we post it with so far?
The Daily Interlake, Missoulian, and Helena IR. My apologies.
And, Mr. Chairman, board members, we do have all this documented, and we'll have that in summary for the outreach that we've done.
Okay,
And this would be now a great and appropriate time for everybody to email me and Sydney with ideas, for who we might directly reach out to, like specific, design, architect, engineering firms that you, would suggest. We'll follow up with this general posting with the specific, communications about the request for proposals. If anybody's got some good suggestions, I have a few in my back pocket. That will include.
and I don't have any on top of my head, but I do know that I reached out to the travel contracting program and they've got some contractors that they have a list of, and I'll try to get you those.
Great.
As well. Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually wondering if we needed to send out an announcement through the tribe's employees as well.
well, it doesn't hurt. I mean, there might be both a tribal and state. I don't know, does the state have a sort of a ongoing contract program or?
Mr. Chairman, board members, I did, ask the state if we could advertise this in their ongoing contract, solicitation program. And they decided that that would, potentially be a conflict, as they are actively soliciting, potential to get funds for the project. They didn't want that to get ahead of their solicitation funding. There's a better detailed communication that I can reshare with the board if you'd like.
I remember, I think, seeing that. And when you talk about communicating with the tribe, there's really no advertising with them. They would either have information we could use or not. So let me just send you some information and you can reach out to them.
Okay.
And then Either they have some additional information or they don't.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, next item here, 6.2, budget updates. Includes the board's budget committee, and happy to shut up and let the board's budget committee lead this if you would like, or you direct me as needed.
What would you guys like to do?
Why don't we start and anybody can just fill in as they feel necessary.
Thank you.
So, all right, so I guess one of the tasks that we were kind of assigned is to look at securing QuickBooks, and Intuit's the vendor. They provided two types of services, a desktop version and an online version. And the online version, we found out you have to have a server, but so we initially met with our accounting firm, Shellick and Davis, on July 29th, and we met with, it was Rhonda, Ethan, Georgia and I, and Christy Shellick, and it was a real good meeting. We met with them because we wanted to find out if our existing budget could just be transferred into QuickBooks so that we could start to manipulate it or build our budget. And one of the things we found, a couple of things we found out were that the coding is probably not consistent with what would need to occur to develop a full-fledged budget. So that was a big issue in itself. So it kind of sent us back to square one. The upshot of that was Christy told us that a lot of firms are switching over to she's got her 27 clients that are switching over to the cloud version. And there was only a couple of them that were familiar with it. The cloud version requires you to have a server, and whereas the desktop is just on your computer. And so in the end, we decided to go ahead and get what was it? The desktop version or the cloud? Yeah, the desktop version. But then that has transpired significantly.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think because it's complicated on the programming, would you mind if I stepped in a little bit? The desktop version is the one that requires the server, which sounds counterintuitive. The one that we engaged with was the online version, which allows us to then have our information hosted on the cloud. Sorry for the small interruption and clarification.
Okay, thanks. So anyway, we decided to do that. And then we thought we were under the gun that it had to be purchased by July 31st. However, they've extended the date a month. So then that took the pressure off. And I think we're talking about potentially using another accounting firm, Redtail. And so I'll leave that discussion. I think it's on here later in the agenda. But based on our meeting and the status, what we did, decided, and we had a conference call with Clayton at the same time. We directed Rhonda to start coding from day one, all the expenses, so that we could build the budget from scratch, which appeared to be necessary. And so Rhonda was to have full access to all the books and all of the receipts and everything else to support this. And that's what she was tasked with. So anything else you want to add to that?
No, you've covered it.
So I guess we're at a decision point, and I don't know, where is that? is it Redtail on here somewhere?
It is, this is the time, Mr. Vice
All right,
Chair.
you wanna let you or Rhonda wanna give us a update then on Redtail?
Happy to. So the document that you have there in your hand is we just got that, added that in, letter of engagement as of today. So it's pretty fresh, but, as another complication in QuickBooks is that we were originally going to solicit the QuickBooks company themselves to help us recode all of our entries appropriately, which they would typically do fee. And they, QuickBooks, upon a lot of discussion and getting quite far down the road, including us making the purchase for that service, then realized that we're a government entity. And then came back to us and clarified that they actually do not perform that service for government entities. So they refunded us for the purchases that we had purchased. And we went looking for other alternatives, which is how we came across Redtail Accounting that might help to serve this feature. From what I can tell, and from, I'll put some words in Ron's mouth, so throw something at me if I need to change, but it seems like a positive opportunity for us. What the ask is, would be to just repurpose, those funds already designated by the board to QuickBooks to Redtail to help us achieve this code and this bringing up to date of all of our financial information.
So just to add to that a little bit more too, we started with Shellick and Davis because they're our bookkeeper and our payroll accountant, and they could do the same thing for the $2,500. I think their hourly rate was $90 an hour. Redtail's is $100 an hour. The difference being that Shellick and Davis do not do any audits, whereas Redtail do audits. And so there is that benefit. We were, I guess, Shellick and Davis was more than willing to help us out, but they're not going to do any kind of audit. The other thing, Clayton turned us on to Gregory Spar. He's the financial director for the CSKT tribe. And I had a real good conversation with him. This guy's just amazing. But he's willing to assign one of his staff when we're ready to start to sit down and build our system and get the codes right so that it complies with all GAAP's general accounting something practices, administrative accounting practices. And so for him to offer that, I think that's just an immense thing for us to take advantage of and be able to, that way, when we're ready to spit out financial reports for either the state or the tribes, it'll be in a system that they're used to seeing coded for government work, So I thought that was great. Wow, what an offer that was. And so anyway, that's kind of where we're at.
So how would you summarize where we're at? We've got Redtail and Greg Spar, his staff.
Well, I guess what summarize.
We've got a staff person who's going to be
Yes.
entering data. So those three are the bottom line.
All right.
Is that right?
Yeah. First thing we probably need to do is decide what we're gonna buy, if we're gonna go with the desktop version or the cloud version
Of,
of QuickBooks.
so we would still, I see. So we would still do QuickBooks, but use Redtail as a contractor?
Yeah,
Okay,
as they're a government contractor or have government contracting qualifications. I think Rhonda should probably speak to Redtail because she's the one that spoke with them. I did not speak with them, but my suggestion is let's purchase this dang QuickBooks and get it, and then and then I think the next step is to sit down and assemble all of our receipts, everything else, and get going on that. But early in that process, sit down with Greg Svar's representative to make sure we're coding correctly and get Rhonda lined out correctly. And then once that occurs, then, or maybe Red Tail sits in on that meeting too, I don't know, but that would be the initial process, I think. And then once Rhonda gets through everything, then I think Red Tail can do an audit on it and see if we're on the right track, but I'm gonna turn it over to you now.
Let me jump in here real quick before you. So we've got QuickBooks, data entry with help from the tribal
Yeah.
staff through Greg Spar, then then Red Tail.
And another step in there is too, that Christy Shalek has said she'd be glad to give us all of the data so that we can import it.
That's an important.
Yeah, all of the existing data, and then we can, at least we can have something to start with. It may not be coded exactly right, but at least we can
They'll have,
QA QC it as we go along.
okay. So, as you start talking about Red Tail, how did we-
Actually, if I can go
how did
back.
we get there?
If I can clarify some points, there's been a lot of conversation, so, I want to clarify any confusion. So originally, the board had approved, online QuickBooks with the $2,500 for the reconciling of the accounts for the year 2023 and 2024. So we already purchased the online software. We are in a contract now with, QuickBooks for that software. We have 30 days if we want to change it to desktop. We've been cautioned by different people to stay with desktop, and other people say, no, go online. The unique thing is if we do desktop, it has to be server supported. And we do not have a server, so therefore our monthly fees would be really high to have QuickBooks support that on their server. Kind of like a cloud-based QuickBooks. And we're looking at fees of about $500 per month if we wanted to do a desktop version with them serving as our server. So we've continued right now with online. And so I wanted to talk about the online portion of it. Shalek and Davis are a great accounting agency. Go ahead.
So what was the refund?
So the refund was the $2,500 for QuickBooks to help us reconcile and recode the accounts so we could produce a budget
that
from
part.
that
Okay.
information.
I see.
So everything looked good on QuickBooks end of things, and then we actually got moved to the accounting department after we got the files from Shalek and Davis. So we do actually have the files, and we're currently going through them. That was a great thing on their part. They cooperated fully with us and provided that. So we have a working platform. The problem is we're unique in our agency as a government for coding, and we need that unique assistance to go through and recode everything so it's correct. QuickBooks, once we were sent to their department, they took a look at us and said, well, it's our new policy that we're not going to be helping government agencies. And so then they immediately refunded our money and said, sorry, we can't help you. That then prompted conversations, and I know that we've had lots of conversations on trying to work on this. And so we ended up I ended up having a conversation with Red Tail, and she has her company and herself has unique experience, not only with tribal, but also government coding, setting up online. She uniquely does online QuickBooks. And so she can have that level of expertise that we need to transition from the information being in desktop to it actually being supported by online. She thinks with her letter of engagement that she can help reconcile and clean up our information to get us going. We're needing to have everything reconciled from June of this year all the way back to our inception. And then once that happens, she'll work with us on setting up guidelines, rules and parameters for us to enter in things in the future. And so whether it's Christy or myself, we'll have everything coded and everything's already there. I have been continually reconciling our physical files, so that I can start entering that into the database that we already currently have once she's done with it. She believes that she can get this information done in a short amount of time. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm assuming it's to be less than 30 days that we'll be able to take this information and actually work with it. She can do a budget, but she would need another engagement letter if we want her to help with the budget or do the budget. But she uniquely knows and has worked with the tribe. And so I believe she actually, the names that you mentioned, she would probably be more than happy to work with them directly. So it's just an expedited trying to get you guys where we need to go quickly. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, yeah.
So if for me at least, backing up, so we have or do not have contract with Red Tail.
Do not, it's on the table here. We just got it this afternoon and it's an engagement letter. Our legal team has reviewed it. And so it's ready if that's something that you guys want to proceed with.
And how did we find Red Tail and
Red Tail
versus 100 other services?
So I've made several phone calls and she was the one that actually had the unique expertise that I felt that we needed. Familiarity and experience with government organizations, working exclusively with tribal organizations, and all of our clients from the most part have been online. So she has extensive experience doing the online. She can also, with the online, with allowing a code given to her, she can access remotely and be up and going within minutes.
Well, I guess what I'm reaching for is you said you called others, so we did talk to other
Yes, I've,
firms and
Yes.
you narrowed it down to this firm for a reason?
yes, with the government, tribal and online experience, those three things I felt made her stand out.
Can you name some of the other firms you?
So I've left messages for Big Sky and I unfortunately don't have my notes and on the other ones that I've reached out to. It's been more or less a conversation like Shallock and Davis, you know, do you guys prefer online?
Well, the reason I'm asking is to get on record that we did solicit and at least consider other options. We didn't just pick one out of the blue. So if you wouldn't mind, after today, make sure you document that and
And if you would like me to.
maybe in an email to the board, just saying this is what we did, how we found this. That's all. does that make sense?
Yeah, when I spoke with Greg Spar, he told me about a firm that they use that does all of their audits, and it's a funny name like Wi-Fi, but WIPHI or something. But they're a big they're an accounting firm based in Missoula and Kalispell. And that's specific, and the tribe uses them for their audits, so it might be worth contacting them also.
Can I clarify? This isn't an audit.
Right,
And
I know
so
that.
this would just be in preparation for an audit. This would just getting our information coded, everything gone through, accuracy uploaded, noting errors, making sure we can upload the receipts if we're missing receipts, that kind of thing. This isn't an audit.
I get that. So let me ask this of the board then. So you see what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah.
Is rather than advertising and showing that we advertise and we got several, you're making contact, which is fine. And I just want to make sure that that's documented. Does that make sense to the board? And how, is there anything else we should add to that?
It's almost like, if I'm reading between the lines, do we have a sole source kind of situation that what we need is so unique that we have to narrow the pool of vendors that we choose from?
Well, even if we choose Red Tail, I just want to make sure it's documented that we didn't just sort of, well, there's Red Tail, let's pick them. We did some due diligence with some other firms. So I think Roger is simply asking that we also do add that other firm to the list of due diligence.
Exactly.
We just the documented contacts would be Shallock and Davis. QuickBooks bookkeeping team. And now Redtail, other than that, has been inquiries on what their expertise is, not specific in nature to us. And so if you want me to pursue that further, I can.
Even if you just made contact and found them to be lacking in what we need, that's fine, just document.
Okay.
But also, I would, if the board agrees with Roger's inquiry, we should follow up on that as well. Yeah, I'm seeing it, we got consensus to also follow up on that firm as well. You might find that they're too much, but they might fit right in with us. It's worth at least exploring it, so.
Are we exploring for reconciliation to produce a budget, or are we exploring for an audit? Because I believe that sometimes we interchange those words and they mean the same thing. But they're completely
I
different.
think in the case of Redtail, what I heard is that they've got the ability to do both.
No. She's an MBA, and she's a bookkeeping type service, and she will not perform an audit.
I thought she did.
Okay, so that
That's
was,
my misunderstanding then.
okay.
So.
So I would assume then the firm that Roger's talking about that was referenced by Greg Spar is a firm that definitely could do audits.
They could do audits. I don't know what their other capabilities are. So I think it's still worth pursuing that inquiry to show that we've done our due diligence.
That makes sense? Yes. Okay, let's do that.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused. Roger was saying we went with a laptop version and you're saying we're looking to go to the online version?
We're in the online version. We were able to get our files from Davis and Shalleck, and so that's what we've engaged in. I believe that the committee met after the board meeting and talked about the desktop because of some limitations that we might have been facing at the time. And so we kind of had a couple steps added to that.
Okay.
So
It's
Roger,
been quite a process.
yeah, Roger and board, would it be your intention then that we consider this today then, or hold off on this today? Redtail.
The only thing I would add to the discussion, Mr. Chair, is I understand that we've had requests from PALA and the state to get our budget produced before the next session, if I'm understanding that correctly. So that's in the mix too, is there is some urgency, as you know, to get this done.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it would take to vet a few more sources either, but
Well,
that's just part of the
given
discussion.
what you heard, Roger, are you satisfied? Given that we have at least made contact with other sources, select Redtail to get us moving, get it down, and then we at some point decide when and whether and how to do audits and audit that we find someone to do an audit, maybe independently.
Well, I'm gonna rely on Rhonda's recommendation for Redtail. I have not made any contact with them, so I'm going with her evaluation. So we gotta get this going. We gotta get this moving.
Okay. I would just urge that we make sure we document what
Yeah,
review process already happened to get to this point. Beyond that, if the board is ready to engage with Redtail, then yeah, we should do that so we can get on.
Yeah, I'll just add, Rhonda and I've had several chats through the week and I can speak for how diligent she has been on the phone calls and the checks on this, and she's really kept me well informed as we go. And I don't even know what questions to ask half the time, so thank you for knowing what questions to ask. So I can speak to her diligence on this.
Okay, so let me, again, just make sure for the board's sake, that it's summarized properly. So we now have the online version of QuickBooks.
Yes, we do.
Okay. We could get the desktop version, but that requires a server,
It
and we do
does,
not have a server.
it does require a server or an expensive monthly payment,
Okay,
one of the two.
we have received files from Shellick and Davis.
We have,
And Red Tail is, after your due diligence of reviewing other firms, Red Tail would be your recommendation to engage with to get us
yes,
going with the budget?
for reconciliation of our files. And then if we wanted to engage her expertise for the budget, it would be in a different engagement letter. So the 2,500 would just cover her time to help go through and fix the chart of accounts, code it and help reconcile. While I do the physical files, she would do the online version of recoding everything.
It was my understanding that after we got everything coded, you could at least make an initial cut out of budget.
Yes,
And is that when we'd engage with the tribal office
Well, I think we engage with the tribal office when
at the time?
tomorrow, if she's ready to start coding.
yes.
I see, okay.
I'd love to make that call and set up that meeting.
Absolutely.
So,
And Mr. Chairman, I'm with Roger. I think we need to move forward on this.
Okay. So I think that summarizes it for me in my mind. So is there anything else we need to talk about right now before we make a decision on red tape?
No, I think that covers it, as long as we clarify that this is a reconciliation of our files and we're going through manually going through physical files with her going through online portion. And an audit would be something completely different.
Any more questions?
Just point of clarification, I think there's three components. There's the reconciliation, which would be very helpful if we do get an audit,
Yes,
but there's also a budget, which is a third component
Yes.
of all of this. So Red Tail will help with that reconciliation, could help with the budget with additional contract or obligation of funds.
yes,
And then the audit thing is still hanging out there. But if we do get audited, and we may have to pull on another entity to help us in that audit process.
yes.
So for Red Tail and reconciliation, what is the cost of that?
We've approached her with a $2,500 budget. If she is going to need to exceed that, it would come back to you guys for further approval.
And that equates to the $2,500 we had already
Refund that you got.
Yeah.
decided to spend on with QuickBooks that we got refunded.
Yes.
Okay,
So it seems like one decision point is the $2,500 in reconciliation, and all the things that you just mentioned, do we feel comfortable that we've done enough background work and looking for other vendors, if you will, that we can confidently settle without bias to Red Tail to do the reconciliation. Then I think there's a second point of discussion. We want the budget as well.
do we need to decide whether she does the budget today or?
That was
Or
one
not.
of my leading questions, that is, do we need the budget question today?
Roger.
that was gonna be Rhonda's assignment, is my understanding. When we sat down and met with Ethan, we had some discussion, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of thought if you had uninterrupted time, it would take about a month to complete this.
Right. That was an estimate before seeing the files. And so there's definite assistance that needs to happen, and go ahead.
So Christie's been involved with this from day one. Seems like we should pull her in too and let her assist you on that, to know where all the information lies, and Ethan knows where all the information lies, so that we can expedite this as quickly as possible.
And I would encourage the conversation with regards to Red Tail to provide Christy and I online training, since it's a new platform. And they're uniquely qualified to provide that at $100 per hour. To have the support and training, so we can get up and going quickly.
When do we need to do that?
That could be at your guys' discretion, I assume.
Ethan, did you have something?
I do, Sharon, board members, as we go forward with training and some other things like that, those would just fall under my authority. And they would be below the maximum caps that you've already authorized me for. But, this particular budget expenditure, since the board did have its hands in it already, by authorizing us to move forward with the QuickBooks and the reconciliation cost, which was cumulatively over $3,000. We felt it was appropriate to have you weigh in again, but I do absolutely intend to, pick up some online training through a mix of QuickBooks and other sources for the staff. And I don't feel like you don't have to specifically authorize that unless you're telling me right now.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
But, it sounds like potentially Red Tail could help with that.
Yeah, and we're gonna be interested in that, and
Okay.
we will start off engaging with this first step and see how that goes. I would, before I commit to some other larger engagement, I'd like to, solicit the first priority service, which is getting all the data cleaned up, which we have to have before we get the budget.
All right. Any other questions? Any other questions? No. Come on. Roger. Anything else we need to review or decide on before we take action on Red Tail?
I think Haley's reviewed the contract. Do you have any comments relative to the contract?
I mean, I think Rhonda did a great job of making sure that this engagement letter does not include budgeting. And if it did, it would require a separate engagement letter. So that service cannot be provided with what is included in here. I do have a clarification question though. The training that they could provide at $100, what is it, $100 an hour? Is that part of this initial engagement letter?
No.
That would be
In
included in
addition.
a potential budgeting engagement letter. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure.
But that, because of the amount, is what Ethan's talking about, they could just do without board action.
Correct. It's just not included in
It's just
this
not included in
engagement
this, yeah,
letter. So I just want to make sure we weren't getting something that was not included in an engagement contract. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Haley.
So, any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yep, we're good. Thank you. Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, if we're ready to take action on this engagement right now, let me ask this, can we get a copy of this engagement letter so all the board members have seen it?
I can grab make copies.
I just want to make sure that everybody's at least had your eyes on it before we decide to take a vote on it.
Is there an action item for it? I don't see one.
Well, if we don't take action on it today, we can't move forward with it. Where are we? We're on,
Mr. Chairman, board members.
yes,
Well, I might have been misinformed in the approach on this, but my understanding was that the board already committed the budget committee to
the 2,500.
the 2,500, and this is really, to me,
Yeah.
just moving from one service provider to another, and I'm not trying to circumvent any process here, but I really feel like if, after this conversation, if the budget committee just directed us to do this, so we would be within your past action item, but so sometimes this thing gets a little confusing.
From a budgeting standpoint, how wrong would it be for us to take action to direct the movement of that money from one contractor to another.
A more comfortable approach would be to make an amended motion,
From the previous,
correct?
okay. So with that, if you're ready, it would be in a minute, so do we need to figure out who made the previous motion?
It should be in the meeting minutes.
Yeah, sure.
So let's figure out who made the previous motion, and if you're willing to amend your motion,
Mr. Chairman, was that for the quick one?
yes,
Yeah, I think I did that.
okay,
Mr.
That's
Chairman,
awesome.
Not a good idea.
okay, hold on, Ken.
I'd like to pause just a second, so we take a look at the engagement letter.
Yes, I'm just trying to get the process down here, I don't wanna. I'm just, so thank you, that's helpful. All right, if it is George,
Yeah, I think it is George.
That's so amazing to me that you could remember that. That's so.
well,
awesome.
one of the things in terms of the minutes that I have noticed is that when we do make motions, we're not, maybe we should start adding the names of who does the motion in seconds.
But, Mr. Chairman, board members, we do have a bylaw item on your agenda today where you could insert that modification.
Okay, we can get there, so
Okay,
are we comfortable that it was George?
If George feels confident, then it might.
Well, George might, is the board
Yeah,
comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, is our understanding that George McLeod made the motion to spend $2,500 on QuickBooks that has been refunded to us now. So we were originally going to spend that $2,500 QuickBooks, we'd like to, instead of spending it toward QuickBooks, spending it with a new contractor named Redtail to help with the reconciliation of the books. So if George is comfortable with that, would you be willing to amend your motion from QuickBooks to Redtail?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And I'll go ahead and make a motion to amend the QuickBook $2,500 and go to the red tail.
Okay,
Is that correct?
amended motion by George.
Mr. Chairman, I'd still like to take a look at that letter before we.
And so we'll hit pause and we'll look at the letter before we decide to, thank you.
yeah. You make that.
We have confirmation that it was George who made your claim.
All right, so while we're reading the engagement letter and we have a motion on the floor, it is confirmed that George made the original motion.
You guys are superior humans.
I happen to know this individual. I do not feel there's a conflict of interest, but I do know this individual. She's very good at what she does.
Mr. Chairman, is that Christine Shiloh that you're talking about? Oh, that.
No, the red tail.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, sure.
I don't know her personally. I know of her and I have heard all good things, so. You got nothing? Okay. You have to hold your mouth just right.
Rhonda, question? Wanna? Was it, I mean, not that we know for sure, but 25 hours, was it anticipated that she would be able to complete this initial task in that time frame?
There was hope because I presented that was our budget that had been allotted. We do not know for sure until we dig in. We have, as we're going through physical files and stuff, we need to be able to, on our end, upload as she works. And so that time is
Oh my God.
potentially could go over.
So if it goes over, we'll need to re-engage with them.
Yes. Yeah, we get 25 hours of her going through and kind of reconciling and recoding, and myself and potentially Christy will be going through the physical end of things and making sure everything's in our files to be recoded. Until we really dive in, we really don't know.
So we could potentially have completed those 25 hours before our next meeting.
Yes, that's a good, potentially, yes,
And if we need to re-engage, we could re-engage it at that point.
yes.
Okay.
You may not need all 25 hours either. So,
Correct.
but I guess after the motions, I'll got a comment.
Okay, so we are still pending a second on this motion. If you've all
I'll
had a chance, hold on.
Okay.
I'm just gonna take final questions and comments.
Yeah, a question that it's from 2022 to June 30th. Did we want to go through July 30th?
So Shallock and Davis files that they gave us was only to June, and so we would need to in-house reconstruct July. It would be helpful if they did continue, but that was what we kind of talked about hourly and with training. We would do that.
We can probably request that information though too.
Okay,
So,
it's just, you know,
yeah,
we're through July.
right.
So that's all I was bringing up.
Yeah.
is if
Good
we
point.
wanted to include July in this, then
Yeah.
it's not in.
Oh, good point.
So how would you approach that?
Can you clarify?
Well, the question is, should we include July or?
We do not have files for her to go through, so that's where we would need to either pay Shallock and Davis to finish July out because they do have the majority of the information, or we just need to, myself and potentially Christy, do that data entry for July.
So if we get done through June and see where we're at by the next meeting, then we can decide if we need to approach Shelton and Davis and get that data. Does that sound fair? Is that reasonable?
And to clarify, with this $2,500, she should be setting up our chart of accounts, and so when we go to interim, she shouldn't need to go back and
And
fix it.
recruit, yeah, okay.
We should have the parameters ready to go for us.
Okay, any more?
No.
Okay, Roger.
So two things. One, to my understanding, we're gonna continue to use Shalleck and Davis through the end of the year to do our payroll and our bookkeeping.
Correct. Not bookkeeping, sorry. Just payroll. Bookkeeping has ended with Shalleck and Davis as of July 30th. That's why we got the online software to do the bookkeeping in-house.
Okay,
Because of the being in the middle of third quarter and fourth quarter upcoming. It's in, I believe, everybody's best interest to leave payroll with Shalleck and Davis until the end of the year, finish out the quarterly reports. Redtail does have a unique experience with onboarding payroll to help us do it in-house as of the beginning of the year. And it would be my suggestion that we engage her to assist with that transition.
okay, so I'm just trying to chart this out a little bit.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's good to know, but so July exists with Shalleck and Davis, so we can, I'm sure, get that if we have to pay for it. That's not a big
If we
deal.
need it.
Yeah, and so then, yeah, they'll continue to do the payroll through the year, end of the year. And then, okay, so I just learned something. You're gonna take over the bookkeeping side of this August 1, huh?
Yes.
Okay,
And then, the attempt is, discussion has been made that we will end up doing payroll
Yeah.
as of January 1 of next year, providing that, we can get enough training and support. And that's what Redtail, I believe, is gonna offer us, is the training and support, and also the transition from desktop to online.
And in the meantime, you'll document the previous encounters, plus you're gonna check with the tribal
Yes,
counterpart.
yes.
Okay. And, questions?
No.
Questions?
No.
Georgia? No, I know she's ready to make,
Yeah.
ready to second, yeah, Roger?
so I guess the only comment I have is that once this is approved, you go ahead and contact Redtail. Let me know, I'll contact Gregory Spar, we'll get something coordinated.
Absolutely. I believe that they already know each other, and so that engagement, it would be pretty easy to facilitate.
Okay, so with that, we have a motion on the floor to accept the engagement letter with Redtail that we have in hand. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Before we take a second?
No.
Okay, ready for that second?
I'll second it.
Second by Georgia. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, you have it.
Cost 25.
Thank you.
Having a budget.
Amen, thank you.
All right, that was,
Points one,
it was
so 3.2, yeah.
3.2.
Eight.
Application updates.
Mr. Chairman, board members. We have been steadily working on applications. We started this week sending out some letters to folks who had filed for Part A, but never came back to us with Part B. I believe there's around 90 to 100 of those folks, and so we're gonna start sending letters out. Whole staff will be working on it, but special thanks to Scott for helping doing a lot of the legwork there. Is that the update that you've got for us today, Mr.
Yeah.
Frakes?
So what this means here is that we've received 14 new FRWMB applications. We've approved 14 new applications. We've received 16, and 2 of them were terminated from July.
And we'll be happy to give you your regular report at your next board meeting that shows the remainder of July, but it's not quite at hand presently. I'll also let you know that nobody's filed any complaints. Okay, so I know Roger wants to hear about it every day. So, that's all I have for 6.3.
Questions?
All right, excuse me, 3.3.
Yeah, then. Any other questions on the applications update? Okay. WRIS updates.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Trustee Schubert continues to lead the charge with our database updates. There is a potential live day for the MVP, which is minimum viable product, 21 days from now. This is gonna fast track us into establishing WP&Ps for state-based registrations and getting staff trained on the water rights database for it so that we can start to use that tool here in-house. That will be a significant effort for us to make the transition from our current practices to the updated practices, and I need the board to be aware of that. We are, I think, very well poised to handle all that. We have some remnant questions that we'll need to get answered so we can continue to engage Montana DNRC regarding the MOU for the database. And as you all saw, because I copied you all on the last set of questions, it's primarily pertaining to permissions and access issues to the database.
Are they? Probably know the answer to the question, but are they making any progress toward setting us up as an independent operation yet, or are we going to continue to follow their lead and then process they had set up previously?
Mr. Chairman, board members, before I answer that, I think what the next steps in this will be that we end up having a technical meeting with the state. That'll then help Haley and I work with staff experts on the WIRIS project to update our MOU response. And I think at that point, we'll engage this body to let you know where we're at and let you know what our suggestions are for next steps, and otherwise get redirected as needed. Yeah.
Is that it?
That's
Any
it.
WIRIS
Yes, sir.
update?
That was that one.
Anything else on the WIRIS
No.
updates? Okay, Office of Engineer Personnel Policy Updates.
Mr. Chairman, board members, do you want to engage in the policy stuff right now? That is a line item, for each one of these sections in the in the OE personnel policies. I did previously put this a little lower in the in the items. There are, if I had to high grade out of here, I really would like to get an answer from the board on the now 3.5.7. But all of these things are kind of higher priority personnel items.
Roger, you made the initial suggestion to change the order. Do you want to continue? Do you want to just hit pause on these and get through more of the agenda? How would you like to?
Well, I guess, yeah, I'm trying to understand what you just said, Ethan, that maybe we should delay this 6.5 section and move into the new number 4, which is the board business.
Well, I recognize we have a couple folks here that might have shown up specifically to talk about some of the agenda items. You mind if I ask? Did you show up specifically to address some of the agenda items on the WP&Ps?
Not the personnel policy per se.
Right, so but probably the water policy portions, yep. And
So that's actually number 5 then on our agenda right now.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
So I guess if I guess then if that's the case, if you want to delay this, then I would recommend we go to number 4 and work through that and then go to the WP&P. Because that's how the budget or that agenda has been restructured.
From 4 to 5. So the question is, do you want to hit pause on the new 3.5?
Sure, I'm okay with that.
Okay, board members, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So under the revised agenda, that was number 6, was changed to number 3. So the 3.5 personnel policy updates, we will hit pause. And if we can get back to any of that today, we will. If not, it'll hit the next agenda. Sound fair?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I see a consensus of the board to do that, so we will move on to the new item. Former 5, new 4, board business. Okay, now we're on to adoption of meeting minutes from 7/24. That is in your packet. You get
All of them. Thanks.
I think I put it back. Actually, this. Hit the back.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
And when you're ready, take a motion to board minutes. One of the things that we just talked about was should we, when we do, it says board action, which is good. We've been doing that and tracking that well. It might be good to document who's making the motions and seconds on these.
We can definitely make that change.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, by consensus, let's do that, but obviously we don't have it here. Minutes of July 24, when you're ready.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 24th.
Motion by Ken.
I'll second it. You can.
I toss up. Second by George. Okay, final questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Approved. Board bylaws amendment compensation. Okay, I'm not sure what this one is. You got something in here? Whoever has got it, yep.
I am, sorry. I have been, keeping track of board meetings and, there's several committees going on right now. And I would like to have some clarification on how, time and events are reported for board compensation. And so that is why that is the agenda.
Mr. Chair, if I could add something.
Yes, Georgia.
So the way we currently have it set up, and everybody chime in case I missed something. We can be compensated for time we spend in a meeting. And we can be compensated for time we spend working in a voluntary committee or subcommittee, however you want to refer that. If the board, for instance, tells us to work on budget, right?
Yes.
What isn't in there is an ability to bill our time as board members for board preparation, for instance. Even though that is included in the bylaws as a requirement of being a good board member, you should be prepping. There's no way to bill your time for that. And I've been putting in substantial hours on board prep, just reading through stuff and getting prepared, and there's no way to bill for that. So when Rhonda's looking at the time, she doesn't know what to do with me, Mr. Chair. So,
Let me.
how do we solve this?
Yeah, let me throw this out, and this was, I mean, we've got. Regular compensation for board meetings and similar compensation then for. Project meetings, let's say. So. It was my understanding that even the tribe agreed that we should be compensated more. Proposed that we increase our board compensation because of the time we would be spending in meeting prep. So it was, at least in my mind, assumed that extra increase in compensation was meant to cover that. However, if the board wants to change that, we need to be specific in changing that. So I know you're raising it, so are you proposing a change?
Well, the way
This says here something about adopt resolution amendment number 4. Is there an amendment proposed?
I think there wasn't there? Didn't I see something in the materials that went out that had
I didn't
this
see the.
stuff in it?
Chairman, board members, there's 2 things under your board business. One is the potential amendment of the bylaws, and the other one is potential amendment to resolution number 4. They're separate and distinct. The amendment bylaws is where board compensation.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah, I just skipped. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, is included, and then there was one other small item in the bylaws where we thought it might be a benefit to make some clarifications about acts of the board, trying to sort of separate actions that require board consensus versus actions that require formal board decision. And so those are the 2 items that the board would deliberate on today.
Okay, and I just misspoke and jumped, so board action adopt bylaw amendment. The question is, what is the bylaw amendment? And so Georgia, you were gonna say something about that.
Well, it would be better to see what was actually there. So I think it was like anything exceeding 1.5 hours, there was some language there. I guess my question was, like when we were looking at water quality concerns last month, I put in an extra 10 hours in additional meetings with water quality staff at the tribes, looking at state regs on water quality to be prepared for that. It wasn't a subcommittee, it was just something I took on. And I don't know if that is time that I should be compensated for or not, or can be compensated for or not. So that's the question. And that can happen when each of us get asked to speak to something in our respective expertise, I assume. So.
Chairman, can I add something?
Yes.
I think very early in this board's existence, we had this almost identical conversation. And the governor's office, if I recall correctly, pretty much said no.
Okay.
Okay. And this is back in
Well, and I think the tribal position on it was, we're spending a lot of extra time preparing for meetings and let's increase and we did. So we took action to actually increase the regular compensation amount, primarily because of that, I thought, but
Having said that, I really agree with you.
It's a lot
Well,
of time.
yeah, I don't disagree, yeah, Roger.
I hear what Ken is saying, but I think that there was something that came out of the governor's office, but I think it was, I don't think it was hard and fast. I think it was more of, this is what our recommendation is, and I think as a board that we have the ability to modify that. And I look at you and like last meeting, when you reviewed 18 pages of Haley's memo on, or that section on the complaints or whatever it was. And I thought, my God, Ken spent a lot of time on this. And I don't know if you did or not. Yeah, but I thought, man, he should be compensated for that. That's going way up and above. And I just looked at it, I thought, we have an attorney on both staff that has the knowledge to deal with this. I'm just gonna defer to him and let him deal with it, and then I don't charge to it, but you should be able to charge for all the hours you put in on something like that.
Yes and no, because I can't be an attorney.
No,
I mean, was part of the conditions of
yeah,
appointment.
all right,
So it's clear when we're meeting here.
yeah.
Clear when we're having special meetings. It's clear when we're having committee meetings. Question is that prep time. So if there is an interest in including that, I'm not opposed to it, but I think we should come up with some language that defines it so that we can get it in there and then approve that. So it's as clear as we can make it.
Mr. Chairman,
And I don't know what that would be. We would need to work on that a bit unless you have something ready to propose today.
No, I was just gonna explain what the problem is.
Okay,
If
that's
there is
fine.
And this is what was in our packet, and I sent in the comment that's in purple, but I was just building on the 1.5 from somewhere else in there. I think, to me, that if that 1.5 maybe should be changed to 3 or 5, 4 or 5 or something like that. But that was the sentence that I added in there because, I mean, when I come down here, I'm spending 8 hours a day attending this meeting at least, and probably another 8 hours a day in preparation for this thing. So, I think that I agree with Georgia. Some of this preparation time needs to be segregated from attending the meeting.
Ken,
I was just gonna suggest we go back and take a look at that letter from the governor's office. We refresh ourselves as to what it really did say, because I remember having the same concerns that Georgia just voiced. Pretty much that letter, I wouldn't say squash those concerns, but they can't be, took care of it. Like, I didn't have an argument.
and just a question. And I'm just wanting to extend this conversation a bit here, so. Let me, it's gonna sound a little awkward, but why do we care what the state said?
That's a very good point, actually. I mean, but we did at the time.
Well, and when the tribe proposed that and submitted documentation that we increase our compensation, we agreed, we did.
Mhm.
I don't know why we cared what they said.
Well,
We chose to do it. So I'm just, again, trying to have.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think circumstances
I
have
don't-
changed.
I don't know. Yeah, Haley.
Yeah, so under the compact, I2H, compensation for board members is actually strictly for services for attendance at board meetings, unless it's fixed by the state and tribal council. So having those conversations to increase the rate was what allowed us to increase the actual flat rate. But it was for services for attendance at the board meetings.
Okay, thank you. So I would maybe look at that letter, try to advance this discussion and come up with some language. So if you want to propose some language, I mean, I'm not sure what it would be. Roger has some suggestion here. Do we want to take a look at this today and move on this, or continue to explore this and come up with some language?
It seems like it's a
Shane?
clarification to what's in gray there, preparing for the meeting. Right? Because a lot of these extra efforts are really in preparation of some component of the meeting that we have coming up. So it's clarification of that in my mind. And it'll be interesting to see what the state letter says, just for what that's worth. But when I read and preparing for the meeting, it's pretty inclusive that you put in 10 hours, you put in 1 hour, that's preparing for the meeting, that's covered by the $300 already. So that's what I think is, that's a clarification of that. Is that really what that means? Is the $300 per meeting cover all the time that's put in? Because it's preparing for the meeting.
But
Right.
we came up with that based on what the state think. Haley just said that meeting preparation isn't part of the compensation. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, I mean, whether you would consider services for a board meeting to include preparation, that has not been determined, but the compact language is specifically stating for services for attendance at board meetings. Does not have anything about preparation, reading, engaging in subcommittees even, just says for services for attendance at board meetings.
But it gets somewhat circular because in our policy, the personnel policies, it says a successful board member will prepare prior to attending. But that is incumbent upon us to do, and that can take hours, given some of what we're facing. So it really can start adding up, and I'm all for pitching in. I'm happy to do it, but I'll just be honest. There comes a point where I can't give any more to the team, it's like, this really starts cutting into my time.
Yeah.
And as much as I love you guys and want to help out,
No, I get it. I don't have a argument. But with the tribal suggestion and engagement we had with them, if I recall, their justification was because we would be spending time preparing.
Right, so that was why I suggested if there's gonna be any sort of increase or inclusion in this language, the conversation would need to take place with the state and the tribal council.
When it comes to the,
If we're proposing an increase or an additional rate for preparation outside of the $300 flat rate, then that conversation needs to be had between the state, tribal council, and board members.
okay,
What was that citation said earlier?
So it's part of the compact, and so it's Article I to H.
so in my mind, the way to engage that then would be to come up with some draft language that we propose to them.
Okay.
Without trying to add any more time to your prep time, Georgia. Would you be willing
but you
to
do this too?
come up with some? And you don't, I mean, we can, I can ask directly Haley to come up with some suggested language for us.
Sure.
And just say, here are some options for you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, board members, for what it's
Ethan.
worth, some of these things, had, moved forward and were reviewed by the state and the tribes. Such as the meeting with my office, and so Georgia, if you would like to come and meet with me and do any of this work, that would certainly constitute things, and then the shift from the 175 to 300. That is something that was affirmed by the board and the tribes. We just never took action to amend the bylaws. And so I'm looking here as a potential suggestion to the board on, like, maybe you could button up a couple of these amendments so that we don't stagger on an inability to move forward with compensation requests, and maybe just generally grab what you've got, make the $300 update, and then work on the rest of it as a second phase in your bylaw amendments. Is that maybe helpful?
Yeah, it's not a bad suggestion.
With obviously the understanding that my office is open to help resolve some of these pre-meeting issues, if you'd like to meet with me.
Thank you.
Is what I've got done.
Well, I think what that would mean is we take action to approve what's in red
Yeah,
now, and then look at other changes in the future as we come up with proposed language. Roger.
so I got one other thing. So I also down there on the per diem rates, I lined out those three things. There's nothing in the state per diem about 3 hours between. It's just simply, those are the times. So
There is actually, that is in the state, but
when I looked it up the other day, I didn't see it.
that's how the state travel does their travel. I'm not saying you need to keep that in there, Mr. Vice Chairman, but that is where that came from.
Boy, it gets confusing.
All right. So let's go back up to the top. If we take action today, the suggestion is that we would go ahead and codify and finalize what's in red. What's there is already been, we've had the alternative to that, the changes to that already implemented. So we could hold off and take one action when we finalize language to deal with prep time. If we want to do that, so we can do one or the other. So what order would you like to do this in? We're just talking about order now at this point. As a practical matter, we're already doing what's in red. So. Haley, would you be comfortable in suggesting some language for the board to address the prep time element of our compensation?
Yeah, I can do that for the next meeting.
Okay. And I don't know what that'd be, I don't know what it looks like, but yeah, I mean, so then if any board member has any thoughts on that, if you want to share your thoughts with Haley, then please do that. Otherwise, that's my suggestion. So Georgia, would you be comfortable with that?
I would, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, on that particular point, anything else, Roger? George? No. Ken?
No.
Shane? Okay, so in terms of order of operation here, do you want to take any action today, or you want to wait until we've seen the other old language and do it all at once?
Mr. Chair, just, I guess my initial thought would be like, I would like to hear what everybody else thinks. Since we've already been doing this, maybe we should go ahead and take action on it to say we've adopted
fine.
what we're doing.
That's fine,
And then come up with the rest later.
that's fine. So we would, if we take action, to be to take action on what was in red.
But this, slight grammatical change to this language here.
I'm all for improving grammar.
Okay.
So,
I think Davis is, needs the same thing.
Sure.
Can you re-highlight what it is? I want to make sure whatever it is we're going to take action on is highlighted.
Right there.
Well, what was in red as well?
Oh, that part was here.
Yeah, we haven't taken action on that yet. We want to make sure that that's,
Yep, so the change is from, 175 to 300.
we've got that change plus the grammatical change in the last sentence of that. That's,
This is still proposed here. I can remove it for this action if you'd like, and we can.
yeah, we're not taking that action right now.
Okay, so why don't I just go ahead and remove it for right now, and, we will.
And then, Roger, what do you want to do with your other changes below?
I guess we can wait on those.
Okay. So what was in purple, we'll just wait on.
Wait on this part.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you're ready, I'll take public comment before we take action on that. And then my understanding is we will follow up at a next meeting with some proposed language to address the meeting time prep compensation. Okay. So, any other thoughts, questions, or suggestions before I take public comment? No. Yes, no, we're good. All right, so we're going to take action, and we in fact have made the physical change and had increased the amount to $300 for board compensation some time ago. This action would just codify that, and then the language. On a biennial basis, the board may review compensation rates and request the state and the tribes adjust the rate. So that was the language you cleared up there. Is that correct? Okay. Any public comment on those changes?
If anyone online would like to make a public comment, you can raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak. See no hands on.
All right. No public comment to be had at this time. Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion, we approve the revision to the compensation rate from $150 to $300 per meeting.
And the grammatical change that was suggested.
Yes. And the grammatical.
Motion by Roger,
I'll second.
second by George. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. So, thank you, George. Thank you, Haley.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I can consider, yeah, just to set our expectations, what I would like to do is just have James put a green note that was approved today. And we'll wait until you work through other bylaw issues before we do a reprint and a more.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine, however administratively you want to deal with that. So that brings us to what is now 4.3, board resolution number 4. Okay, who has that?
That would be me.
Okay, and you've got something to put up for us?
Yes, I'll let James, make this change. And then, just want to go.
Yes. Try to help.
Okay. Got it? Okay. So this resolution is for the notice and comment policy that the board adopted back on December 14th of 2023. I made 2 changes to the resolution or proposed changes based on the fact that we've now gone through a couple notice and comment periods. And obviously, we're gonna have some bumps in our procedures and policies, and this is a great time to work through it. So the 2 proposed amendments I have, if you wanna scroll down, James. Okay, so the first one is under this section 2 for public comment. What this does is it allows for the board to extend any comment period. So as you'll remember, the original comment period is for 15 days. And then the board may extend that 15-day comment period beyond that after the completion of it. And so that they can either be when the board is deciding on notice and comment at that meeting and say, okay, we're instead of 15 days, we'll go for 30 days notice and comment, or after the 15 days that was approved completes at the next board meeting, the board can say, we're going to extend this for another 15-day notice and comment period. I do have on there that the extension shall not exceed 45 days because of the fact that we need to get things on the ground and running. So 45 days seems like a reasonable amount of time for public to comment on the policies, seeing as 15 days sometimes doesn't, we don't even get comments in 15 days. Even given the amount of notice that we provide. So that's the first proposed amendment.
Question.
Yeah. Jim.
So,
Cool.
so the, I mean, it seems, what I understand, the extension may be for any length not to exceed 45, so the 45 includes that initial 15, or?
Correct.
Okay. Because I could read that as that's an additional 45.
Then we can put some clarifying language on there. The extension may be for any length not to exceed 45 days, including the initial 15-day comment period.
Okay, all right.
That help.
Yeah, I'm sure, yes, because the way I initially read it was that would be an additional 45 on top of the 15, but that's not what you
That's a good catch.
meant.
Any questions on that First Amendment?
No.
The second proposed amendment is just to, I think we had some conversations about, you know, we're changing grammar or spelling based on public comment, from public who catches grammatical errors or spelling errors, thankfully. You know, would that require another notice and comment period, or does that require board approval? So this is just flushing out if it's grammatical or spelling changes, so we just came up with ministerial changes, then those do not require any sort of board approval or additional notice and comment periods. And then I did put on there, so any subsequent changes made after receiving the public comments, but that are not based on the public comments shall require an additional 15-day period. So for example, if you know, we're going through these, we received for the domestic allowance, public comments that we received. We put in changes to the WP&Ps based on what was proposed in the public comments for the board's approval. those particular changes do not require an additional 15-day notice and comment period because they were brought to us by a public comment. Now, if we were reviewing the document again, and somebody found in there, oh my gosh, we need to add an entirely new section to the WP&Ps to help explain this, but that wasn't put out in the initial, that section needs to go back out. So that clarifies that.
And I've run into this. What if we inadvertently leave out the word not?
In what situation?
We're saying something has to be done, actually saying something shall not be done, we leave out the word not. Is that grammatical or is that substantial?
Yes.
Yeah, it depends, it depends.
I've actually run into this.
Yeah.
We would probably want to err on the side of caution and do the public notice. I mean,
Correct.
just. If it comes to that kind of a debate, then I just say that'd be my thought.
Yeah.
Get the public comment.
Especially if it pertains to any sort of authority or actions of the board or the office of the engineer, and it changes that authority, then. Yeah, I mean, being transparent as a public body would be my recommendation.
Any other proposed changes to this resolution?
That's it. Just
Okay,
those two.
any other questions or comments or concerns about those proposed changes? Ken?
No.
Roger? George, Roger? Georgia, okay, so hearing none. Any public comments on these changes?
If you'd like to make a public comment, you can raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak. Seeing no one online. Okay.
Okay, seeing no public comment, make a motion to approve those changes if you're ready.
I'll move to accept these changes as proposed by the legal counsel.
Motion by Ken.
Second.
Roger got you that time.
Okay, that's good.
Second by Roger, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, changes to the resolution approved, so let's take a break.
Right.
We will take a break. Thank you.
Off recording. This one?
Actually,
All right, thank you. Welcome back. We are back from break. I believe we are on to our next item, which I believe is former 3, number 5 now. WP&P post public comment. Who has this one?
Mr. Chairman, board members, I'll introduce the main topic and we'll shift around after that if please the board. This, what you'll have here presented to you are two major items. One, the board requested a white paper regarding parcel size, and OE staff wrote, along with legal counsel, wrote that white paper that'll be presented by the OE hydrologist Frakes. The second item is the post public comment proposed WP&P that has all of the specific comments from commenters embedded in the actual document that legal counsel myself also went through and added some additional considerations to each of those. So that will presumably be go through them one at a time, kind of an arrangement to get you towards items 3 and 4, which would be public comment and then potential board action on those WP&Ps. With that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Frakes.
Okay.
Board members, next on your agenda is your consideration for this impact analysis that the board directed us to do post receiving public comments on the domestic allowance sections that were sent out for public comment. We received, as you'll remember, about 4 public comments. 3 of those pertain to the parcel size policy. This white paper or impact analysis, whichever you'd like to call it, is specifically about that one policy, which is whether or not we should consider 20-acre parcel sizes or 40-acre parcel sizes. And that's the limited scope of which we prepared this impact analysis for you. I'll just sort of walk you through how this was created. On the first page is a description of basically what this is all about, the need for the paper. On the second page, we have the actual specific public comments pertaining to this piece. Then on the third page, we have the impact of those comments, which I will sort of rely on Haley to help explain that impact there. And then on the final page, we have a technical report, which tries to use some of the best available data to make some, inferences on what both options would potentially consist of.
As an initial question, have the board members been able to review this document?
I have.
I just want to make 2 quick, just precursory notes. So one is that this entire impact analysis, myself and the office of the engineer staff, we're not attempting to assume, guess, or extrapolate any of the content, meaning or intent behind a public comment. We were strictly relying on the technical and legal expertise of myself and the office in the recommendations or conclusions that we made in this impact analysis. And then the other note I want to make is that this is within the context of the exterior boundaries of the reservation. So it does not, the context of what we were trying to analyze was within those parameters and not what the impact on the state at large would be.
Board members, if you've read it, floor is open for questions, comments, unless you want to go through this line by line here. However you want to do it.
And I'm happy to do a quick, just review of the impact of the comments, just from like a policy legal standpoint. And then James could probably provide that on the technical side, if that's helpful.
Please do.
So, as James mentioned, page 3 pertains to what the policy or legal implications of each factor would be. So if we decided to go with 20, what's kind of the basis for that? What's the history behind that? What might the implications be with that? And then 40 is the other option based on a public comment. So I provided a little bit of history. I mean, we've already received, or you've already received a white paper on the state's history of existing use and what the state terms combined appropriation. So I did not feel it was pertinent to go into that again. But I did provide a little bit of update on what DNRC is choosing to do based on that district court case that we talked about with existing uses. And essentially the conclusion based on a 20-acre parcel size, because the public comment heavily relied on state authority to make that comment, was that because there is uncertainty in the state-based policies right now, DNRC doesn't necessarily have a direction. They just have kind of more of a policy conclusion, but not necessarily a direction on where they're going to go with a rule change. Because of the uncertainty with that, there might be uncertainties when the board or the office reviews parcel sizes if they were 20-acre parcel sizes. So that is the legal or policy conclusion for 20-acre parcel sizes. For 40, there is not necessarily a statutory guidance for 40. Based on the public comment that we received, which was from the tribes, we did reach out to them. They provide us with the CSKT Comprehensive Resources Plan, which is the basis for their decision to comment on 40-acre parcel sizes. So there's not necessarily a legal or policy conclusion for 40 acres, other than it is within the comprehensive resource plan that CSKT has put out, and that the compact does provide more so for conservation of the source. Yeah, that's essentially the policy and legal conclusions that we were able to come up with. I think the technical side is going to be maybe a little bit more interesting in terms of the actual impact on the.
So, Matt, I didn't really hear a legal conclusion for your presentation for the 20-acre.
So it's because the state policy is uncertain right now on where the state's going to go with that. The conclusion is that it would be uncertain when the office or the board were to analyze a parcel size, 20-acre parcel size,
Why?
because there's no direction right now.
For the state agencies.
Correct, but we're basing off of the public comment. The public comment heavily relied on state authority. And so because of that, that is where the 20-acre parcel size comes from. And that direction and how to follow that is based in state policy and statute.
So are you concerned that they may come back with a new policy that goes to a 40-acre size when we've already passed the 20-acre one?
No, we haven't passed anything. Just for
Assuming we pass the 20-acre, and the state comes back and says, well, we just started to go with 40-acre.
No. No, the board can determine what parcel size it would like to review under. We're just providing what the background was on the public comments and then making a conclusion based off of what the supporting evidence or information was for that public comment.
So the conclusion is the state doesn't know what it's doing right now.
Correct.
Okay.
That's very correct.
I mean, that's really.
No, and I'm being very serious. That was not a sarcastic response.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
like if we rely on the state position and they don't know what they're doing, that could make our decision more arbitrary.
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
But-
go ahead, Roger.
Well, I was gonna say, maybe we need to regress a little bit on that. Now, you're specifically referencing the combined appropriation thing that got thrown out in Broadwater County. Is that what you're,
So DNRC's
Referring to?
conclusion for how they are tackling existing use considerations in permits is right here at the very first paragraph. DNRC implemented the following changes. DNRC will no longer issue predetermination letters for a DEQ subdivision review. DEQ is to rescind its rules regarding the predetermination letters, and DNRC rescinded its guidance regarding combined appropriation. That attaches to every aspect of its interpretations of existing uses within the context of any sort of subdivision review or new subdivisions going forward. It makes it really uncertain and tricky right now to navigate. There's anticipated legal challenges with it.
but that was specific to just the combined appropriation clause.
It's specific to how the state reviews what we are talking about. So we don't use the term combined appropriation.
No, we don't, yeah.
We chose not to, but we do still have ideas and concepts that relate to it.
Georgia.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all the work that went into this. I understand that there's statutes and state ordinances and things of that nature, but in the information that we had available to us to read, there was the CSKT Natural Resources Plan. along with other training materials from a groundwater workshop. And that's empirical data. It's robust science, and I read every page of that. And in that, there's an extensive amount of information on monitoring wells and looking at Casey, really superb hydrology that's been done here. And that led me, when I looked at this, to be very, very respectful of the CSKT recommendation of a 40-acre parcel size, because that's been informed by science and research. It's not being informed by what does the state do or what does this policy say. This is really good science that's been performed by really good scientists that say, this is what we want on our own land. And that was all I needed to read for what, if that's helpful to anybody, but, you know, it was also in our packet, a memo from Seth. We've got wells in our league tap and dry right now. We're not going to improve that situation by reducing parcel sizes. So I really want to bolster what the tribes want here, and that's a 40-acre size.
Question,
Ken,
and maybe I'm overthinking this, but that information that you reviewed, all that stuff's in the record?
In the record. I don't know what that means.
Is it part of the official administrative record for this board?
It was in our emails that we got. I don't know.
If the public were to request it, we would be able to give it.
Okay, so we could say we relied on information in the record if we go with 40 acres.
Correct.
Okay.
We have properly requested it from the tribal department per their guidances. And yes, now it is within this office's resources. So yes,
Okay.
if the public wanted it, we could produce it.
And the reason I ask is, if you already know, is that our decisions have to be based on the record.
Ah, thank you. I didn't know what that meant, so I learned something new from you every time I see you, Ken. It's awesome.
Haley would have told you if I didn't.
Well, thank you both. I've already told her I think you guys have superior brains to most of them, so put that in the record.
My wife and daughters would disagree.
thank you, Georgia. Ken,
I'm still listening.
anything?
Yeah, I favor the conservative approach of going with the 40 acre parcels. We're seeing a lot of wells going dry, not only our lead, but below Mission Dam. Probably gonna see quite a bit more depending on how we get the rain and stuff. But I really feel like we need to be conservative.
One of the, in just for what it's worth, just trying to understand it. And again, not following what the state has done or not done, but trying to understand what that process has done relative to changes. In other words, the state is doing whatever it is doing, and it's creating changes. What impact is the changes process having? Because I keep thinking about, what if we do this and the next board says, well, we're going to change this. How do we think about that? I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, other than to say, how do we think about that in terms of the future?
I think matter of somewhat common sense that it's easier to give than to take away. If we come up with a 20-acre limit, and then the state comes up with a 40-acre limit, and we agree that's good, we're gonna go after the same population that we already granted, or whatever, granted, approved 20 acre, and say, by the way, we were wrong, you're gonna get less water. And the opposite of that would be, well, we were wrong, maybe you could have more water.
Shane,
So. I guess the question is, not entirely related to this, but our stockwater form. 60 SF. Has a 40-acre. Requirement, minimum of 40 acres within that to construct a pit. So I was just curious to why. There was an acre requirement in. That use. And why 40? What was the rationale for their 40? Does that have any bearing on our decision here, whether it be 5 to 50, you know? But I think one of the key things, I kind of touching on what Chairman was saying is if we change something later, what I think our decision has to be the least arbitrary decision now. I don't think there's gonna be a crystal clear answer back to making a decision with the record. This is our decision, whatever it is, with the rationale at the time that we have it. If the future board wants to change that, they're gonna have to have their rationale as to why they're changing it with their data set at that point. So I think all we can do is make the best decision now with the data that we have and be the least arbitrary possible. I hate to use the word least arbitrary because that's just not quite, it's counterintuitive, but I just don't think there's a crystal clear yes, no. And we just got to make the best decision with the data we have. So it makes me curious to why there's 40 acres in the stockwater permit. And what was their rationale to that 40 acres? And is there any bearing to this decision? And it could be totally unrelated.
and Shane asked me that earlier off the record, and it was my suggestion that maybe, just maybe Ethan has got some thoughts on that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members, the 40-acre value that is in the stockwater pit is taken directly from the similar pit allowance exempt use offered on the rest of the state. That 40-acre value was to try to situate opportunities for folks who had enough acreage to actually make a stock pit, worth it, that there would be actually enough stock present to use the stock pit to try to circumvent the idea that people would be putting these pits in under, as a recreational pond or something else under the guise of stock pits on small parcels. So there's a little bit of relation there, but it is really driven, in my understanding, historically, towards the stock, purpose of that particular use.
It's more of a physical component versus a water quantity.
It is, and it directly mirrored the existing state approach for right or wrong, but that is where that came from.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Ethan. Does that help?
It does.
Okay. So I saw Haley kind of, maybe I saw an eyebrow go up when I was asking my question in terms of future change. How do we think about this today in terms of changes in the future too?
I mean, I echo the consideration of the information and trying to make, the least arbitrary decision. I mean, making a decision with the information that's in front of you and in the record, as Ken pointed out, which is very valid. But the reality is that you can't predict what's going to happen. I mean, that's why DNRC is having to go back and change some things. I mean, not only based on science, but based on legal parameters. So it's, the intention was there and the good intention was there, but there's always going to be changes and revisions that come down the road.
One of the things that, and then the additional sort of semi-arbitrary question I have is what's the and we've seen some of this from, I'm surprised not, it didn't really come out in great detail in the comments, but what's the impact on developers?
So I
Which
think
way we choose?
the technical report would actually be a really good thing to go through right now.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'll sort of walk
Alright,
through the technical report, which tries to put some numbers to this question. But before I start, I just wanted to say a big thank you to our intern Scott Ollinger, who helped me prepare the data. And this data comes from the Montana Cadastral. Basically what we did is we took the reservation data from Montana Cadastral and just cut out only reservation data. And then we cut it up into bins, right? And what we're doing is we're making some assessments based off of what the maximum possible usage could be for those different parcel sizes under the two different situations, right? So option one, top is the 20-acre cutoff option, and down below it's repeated with 40 acres. And then what I do is I basically put the different options and assign volumes, annual volume limits to each parcel size. And then I basically just take the difference between those things to make a comparison. And in conclusion, the last line here, you can see that if you subtract the 20-acre option from the 40-acre option, there's a difference of about 11,500 acre-feet per year, which is substantial.
One of the, and I'm just gonna throw it out because it came to mind while I was reading this, is would there be, when we sort of think about it in technical terms first, would there be any value in thinking about this by geographic or watershed region of the reservation? Thinking about it differently. In other words, is there any value in thinking about this in terms of maybe in one watershed area setting at 20 and another one setting at 40? And this is, I know I'm asking something that's loaded here, but I'm asking just to get it out here.
Not something that I considered. I will say that the ordinance does allow for this, controlled groundwater management area, which allows people to bring that kind of consideration to the board for additional, policy to be set for specific drainages and areas and things like that. But no, I didn't consider that at all in making this or.
That's fine, but when making sense, does anybody have any thoughts on that?
That's a great question. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think hydrologically, it makes a lot of sense. I think legally, it would be extremely difficult to enforce, regulate that.
And maybe even a matter of policy. I mean, I get that, but I wanted to ask it.
So the state has a number of controlled groundwater areas and they're pretty well designated. And there are limitations as to what you can do in those. And I would imagine we'll be headed in that direction also. So I guess a couple things. So I'm all for water conservation. I was glad when the compact came up and said, instead of giving domestic allowances 10 acre feet like the state does, we're going to give you 2.4 acre feet. In fact, I even thought it could be less, for domestic. But so I think that's good. Water conservation is important. That's for sure. And I think the wells going dry is an issue, but I think that's a different issue that gets addressed through the controlled groundwater area designation thing. And that's definitely got to happen. And, there's areas of flowing wells on the reservation that definitely need to be capped and stopped so that there's not that waste of water either. So those are one issue than this. And I come back to the original premise of this domestic allowance, in that this was supposed to be for small subdivisions, small developments, you know. The intent was to make it simpler for a minor subdivision, which is 5 lots or less, to get through and get permitted. And so then it comes down to, okay, are we gonna put a minor subdivision on 20-acre parcel or a 40-acre parcel? So I look at that then, and there was some discussion on clustering, which is a great idea. And then you have all your houses close together and you have a common area for the rest of it. And that's a good thing too. But so if you just break these up arithmetically, if you have a 20-acre parcel and you do a minor, that's going to be 5/4. If you have a 40-acre parcel and you bust it up into 5 parcels, then it's going to be 8-acre parcels. So then that comes down to each, because this is limited to 10 acre feet per development. So each of those parcels gets 2 acre feet. Well, are you going to be able to adequately even do anything on an 8-acre parcel with 2 acre feet of water? You're going to have a field of knapweed out there is what you're going to have. So I guess I come back to, this kind of development scenario that, to me, it may be better to, in some respects, to have a 40-acre, but as far as development goes, is it going to be taken care of and better stewardship if it's a 20-acre parcel? And that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I think then and if we say it's limited to a 40-acre parcel, are we I don't know, I'm just throwing this out. Are we doing a taking of somebody's land if it's to say that we're limiting you, I don't know. So I just think in some respects, like I say, I'm an advocate for water conservation, but in some respects, I think there's a better use if it's a 20-acre parcel that has only 4 4-acre lots than an 8-acre lot, is how I'm kind of looking at it.
On thinking about your question on taking, I'm not sure I follow that one, because we're not going retroactive here. I think the policy says this only applies to those from the future on. Anything that was set prior to what the start of the compact, I think, is grandfathered in. Correct? Am I reading it?
Correct.
So this would be toward the future.
Okay.
And while I'm leaning toward the 40-acre conservation piece, I absolutely understand, in my mind, the question of the future role of controlled groundwater areas, which are coming.
They should.
So if those are coming, those are gonna put the most strict limits on whatever groundwater use is in those areas. Now, we don't know what those are because we haven't dealt with them yet.
Doesn't that go back to the good point Ken made, though, that if we start with a more conservative estimate, that puts us in a better position, or future boards in a better position if they want to lower that, rather than us to try to limit it in the future, a future board to try to limit it. I like that rationale because it bolsters the science, or at least it matches up with it.
But there's a difference between this policy change and a controlled groundwater area policy change. So theoretically, we're looking at, either, going with 40 with the future potential of dropping it to 20. Or going with 20 and, relying on the, control groundwater area system to protect the resource.
And there's one scenario that hasn't been mentioned yet, and that is what if we go with 40 and the future science says, uh-oh, that's not conservative enough either.
Yeah, so given that, let me back up and ask this question. Because maybe because I'm not remembering, how did we get to either 20 or 40?
That came through in the draft of WP&Ps. We had proposed two options of either 20 or 40, and that's what we sent out for public comment.
Well, 20 was based loosely on state, and then 40 was based loosely on tribe.
So those numbers aren't etched in stone and could be something different anyway.
Could be 30.
Well, I think the 20, the 20 actually came from the Montana Subdivision and Plating Act
Correct.
Yeah, and
that was enacted back in May 1st of 1975. So that's where the 20 came.
okay. And the 40, as you say, based on.
Yes, tribal data.
I guess one component of this that I would have been interested to see was, you know, the reservation's located on within 4 different counties. It'd be, and I recognize we're talking reservation, but it'd be interesting to see what the planning and zoning was in those 4 counties, just to get a feel for what how they deal with 20 and 40s, maybe, you know.
Are you suggesting we go get that information?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if
Part
it'd
of
be
our
valuable or
consideration.
not. Yeah, I just kind of, I mean, maybe we need to look at it, or maybe not. I think, well, I don't know. I don't know. You know, each county has their own planning and zoning rules.
Well, something like that ought to be readily available, and to the extent it's available, could be available by the next meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Shane,
Well, I guess to that point, there's 4 counties, but potentially 4 different zoning components, which was also tribal trust,
Mm.
which has no zone. So I'm not sure how, we wouldn't be looking at the whole land base by looking at the county zoning criteria.
Well, if we need to throw in that component too, I mean, that's fine.
Yes,
well, they don't have zoning, but the closest thing they have is that land use plan that was referenced in the data that they were looking at, yeah, what Georgia was referring to. Ken?
yeah, 2 thoughts. Number 1, another factor that we really need to think about is we really don't know what's out there. As far as the resource. We know there's water, but we don't know how much or how available it is. And the second thought is Roger's discussion of the county zoning. I think anything we can do to be the least arbitrary, including, you know, making the record more thorough, would be helpful.
So we can go after that information and get it in terms of resource availability. There's 2 things. One is the resources of big concern, and we have to pay attention to that. But we manage water rights. So in terms of understanding what you're talking about, we can still get that information, but that information is really almost all tribal driven data. And if we want that, that might be a useful exercise to have a groundwater supply primer given to us.
Does such a thing exist?
Well, I mean, I think that if you brought tribal hydrologists in and said, tell us about groundwater on the reservation. I mean, George could probably do it himself, but I think tell us about groundwater in the reservation and answer those questions, I think you'd have a better idea of what that source and supply is or is not. Georgia?
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion. I'm learning a lot from all of you. My thought was, I like the idea too of looking at what the ordinances are for planning and zoning for different counties. That's reasonable. But I think it's also important to underscore that a lot of those county zoning policies are and have been created without empirical data. In fact, sometimes those zoning laws and ordinances are made in contrast to existing data, in opposition to what the data would indicate. And I don't have your guys' legal expertise and stuff. I'm just an old science hack over here going, show me the data, show me the numbers. The numbers say this. And it seems to me the most logical path forward is to follow the data. And if the data says the water ain't there, maybe we need to slow our roll. You know, we might have enough water for us, but I love that tribal adage of looking at 7 generations, right? And I'm a climate science person. 7 generations from now is not looking rosy. So we got to look at the data, you know, and I think, yes, coming back to the monitoring well network, coming back to groundwater monitoring, is a conservative approach that is protective. And I know that that's not perhaps a legal answer, but it's a science answer.
Well, you raised the question, is a groundwater presentation something you'd like to see?
Yes. If possible, I mean, like you said, I don't know if it exists.
Well, I think if one exists, it exists within the tribal expertise and data, and I think that would be the best place to start, at least give you some picture, which would be better than any picture we have right now.
I think a decision based on the data would be more defensible than one where we simply ignore the data, even if that data wasn't helpful. You need to look at it.
I agree.
Okay, so is there an interest in going after looking at those county planning zoning regs? So should we?
I think both of those things would be good, both the planning and the groundwater.
It shows respect for the people we're serving.
So, we would want to direct staff, at least by consensus, to get that information and seek a presentation from the tribe on groundwater on the reservation.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Georgia.
Ethan sent an email out, I think it was this week or last week, with 2 presentations embedded in it. I think one was tribal, one was state. Am I remembering that correctly, Ethan?
Both of the presentations that were in that email from the state.
Were from the state, but they included tribal data. One of them did.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a resource there. There's probably more, but those were 2 that I looked at. So
we need to make sure that everyone actually takes a look at those. But we also want to consider a groundwater presentation.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So shall we do those 2 things? Ethan, do you have?
Mr. Chairman, board members, since we're on this topic of parcels, I was hoping you might consider a couple of items that I will tell you to think about as things move forward. The first one is that there was a time when it was really easy to make 20-acre parcels. And so there's a whole bunch of them out there. Administratively, there's no question, if you were to choose 20-acre parcel, it's easier on our office. It's harder on our office to do the 40-acre parcels. The difficulty on our office doesn't necessarily need to drive the level of conservation the board chooses, but I will point out that there are in fact a lot of 20, just a little over 20 acre parcels that are out there. That is part of why I had stuck the 20 in there for your consideration. The second thing I would bring up, yes,
How is it gonna go to the office?
because when somebody comes in with a 20 acre parcel that they have purchased and they want to do up to 10 acre feet, now they're gonna have to join with some other 20 acre parcel that is to make that 40 acre parcel for a 20 acre total.
Or is it order in your
Add
office?
that up. Just our office will end up having to jump anytime that there's a shared arrangement between multiple parts, if there's more one.
Oh, let me, you have pause right there.
Sure.
So Haley, if what we're setting is the policy moving forward from the date of the compact forward, if there are 20 acre parcels that already exist out there, they're existing, they're grandfathered in. How does the water policy affect those going into the future?
It's for any new developments.
What about those prior ones?
Well, they haven't been developed. There is no permit on them for domestic lots or development domestic lots.
So if they were under affiliated ownership at the time of the effective date, they would be considered one giant piece.
So essentially, it's just a 20 acre parcel. There's no relation yet to the water use.
But if they start to put the water to use, then we apply what rule?
Yeah, whatever policy is adopted, if they were to come in and request development domestic allowance and apply for that, then it would be whatever the policy approved by the board is.
And then we would be faced with the scenario Ethan is describing.
It would depend, but yeah, to some extent.
So let me see if I got this right too. That's a good question, Clayton. So what we're really talking about, let's say, is if somebody had a 200 acre parcel and they wanted to bust it up and make a subdivision. In order, this is, and so they would then have to create 5 40s instead of 10 20s to get a water right, essentially.
Not to get a water rate. That's
Well, to get a domestic development allowance.
I mean, yes and no. I don't know if I could describe this properly, so James, I know you have a thought.
Yeah. I don't think it doesn't, the policy doesn't dictate the size that the developer could cut their land into. It just, it's hard to describe.
It's dictating the volume that can be used
Yeah,
within a development,
The volume of exceptions.
correct?
So just to, I'm sorry, just like,
It
as a
gets
big
really
reminder, you're
complicated.
talking about the total, volume, annual volume of exceptions within this
Right,
unit. And so those parcels could be 1 acre, 3 acre, whatever. We're either gonna look at them in 20 acre blocks or 40 acre blocks to look for that maximum value.
Which is 10 acre feet per
Yes,
acre.
sir.
yes.
10 acre feet per acre
Not
spread
per
over
acre, not per acre, 10 acre feet
Acre.
per year.
10 acre feet a year,
Sorry.
either on a 20 or a 40. My question is trying to understand if we've got already these 20 acre subdivisions that were created prior to the date of the compact.
Those are grandfathered in.
How does the water supply, how does the water policy apply to those?
So hold on though, it depends, I'm gonna help you. If their ownership becomes very relevant at the effective date. So they could have already existed as 20 acre parcels, but if they were all under contiguous ownership, affiliated ownership, at the effective date, they would still be one big block as far as we're concerned.
And then for
Okay.
water purposes, it'd have to be 40 acres, 40 acres, 40 acres. If
Or-
we said 40.
Or 20, whatever, you know, whatever this board does, or if this board takes no action on parcel size, which one of my other points that I'm gonna make to you is that the ordinance is silent on parcel size.
Right, but in,
We would just consider it in its entirety.
but in the case of that, if they were separate individual owners of those 20-acre pieces,
At the time of the effective date, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, then we would consider them to be separate.
and if we set it at 40, they would have to join a neighbor to say 40, become 40.
If they were not separate and isolated in ownership at the time of the effective date.
We're veering off the path again. We're not talking about getting a water rate, we're talking about qualifying for an exemption. If you don't get the exemption, you can still get a water rate,
Correct.
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have to keep reminding ourselves, we're not talking about getting a water
Right.
Yes, but I'm trying to understand how the mechanics of this is working for parcels that existed prior
rate. Okay, I
to
get that.
time of the date of the compact versus those that are after, and I'm just,
How the exemption will work for.
yeah,
Yeah.
And just, I have one more point, if you'll just let me, as a reminder, that nothing in here bypasses the individual, like, irrigation acreage limitations of individual or development domestic allowances. So if you have a 40-acre parcel, you're not gonna get to go out and irrigate, you know, as much as you can under 10-acre feet. You're still gonna be restricted to the yard sizes for those types of exceptions. Okay, so the difference between a 20-acre, you know, parcel size and a 40-acre size in terms of like unirrigated napweed issue is gonna be less than 3 acres. You know, because of the other conditions associated with the exceptions to a permit. So I'm sorry to add that extra complexity, but it is important.
oh, but it's a fact. And
It's a
we just-
fact.
We're trying to it's a complexity, but that's what we're trying to understand is these complexities, so that's
Right.
okay.
Right.
Just trying to understand it.
You live in interesting times.
I'll also just bring up one other thought, that if the board would like to see some additional information before tackling the parcel size, I'm gonna encourage you to just leave that part out of the WP&P. There are other pieces of this WP&P that we need to really move forward with. We have now, I think, 3 advances because we need to have the policy direction on some of these other aspects that are perhaps easier than the parcel size determination. So at least please consider that. If you say no, I'll quit arguing about it.
Well, no, we would have to move forward in that manner anyway, if we're gonna get additional information. I mean, if there's something we can move forward on and get public comment on, we should probably do that. But in this particular item right now, we want to get some additional information, which includes, you want to define what you want?
Well, I think the request is that one staff contact the CSKT hydrology department to provide a groundwater presentation of the aquifer status on the reservation for the next meeting. And 2 is to evaluate the planning and zoning regulations relative to 20 and 40-acre parcels for Missoula, Lake, Sanders, and Flathead,
And then CSKT,
and CSKT, yeah.
okay. So I think we can do all that by consensus. I don't know that we need to take action on that, but we good with that?
Yes.
Good with that? We have a lot of positive head nods on that. If we can do those 2 things for the next meeting, that would be helpful. And apparently we have hit 4 bells. We're about to hit 4 bells. So, I think the suggestion was, and we agreed that we would adjourn the regular meeting at 4 and go into our executive session. So, before adjourning the regular meeting, we need to set a date for our next meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I know we said we'd move, so adjourn it for, I do have a person, I think, that wanted to comment on this issue.
oh, did I miss that? If somebody who wanted to comment,
Is there the opportunity for comment?
you on this particular piece, yes, please. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I sat here for a while, so I may as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. I appreciate it. In looking through this, I think if the board were to choose in between the 20 or the 40 parcel size, I think the 40-acre parcel size makes more sense for a couple of reasons. One, I believe it's personally that it's consistent with the original premise of the compact. So if you read Article 1 of the compact, it lays the foundation for the agreement, and it notes that the parties agree to the prudent and knowledgeable conservation, management, and protection of water resources on the reservation is essential for the health and well-being of all the residents of the Flathead Reservation. Article 1 also reads that the parties agree to protect not only the tribal industry and flow water rights, but also to protect existing uses and historic farm deliveries to FIP irrigators. And so with those two things in mind, I think that the 40-acre parcel size is more consistent with those foundational agreements in the compact. Secondly, I believe it's more consistent with the ordinance. So I have heard some discussion about comparison to state or local regulations. And I think it's important to note that the ordinance is generally more conservative than some of those parallel documents. So a great example being that the allowance for the permit exception is 2.4 acre feet in the ordinance compared to the state-based 10-acre foot limit. So for that reason, I believe the 40-acre parcel would be more consistent with the ordinance. Third, I think it's more consistent with the science and with the hydrologic setting. So there are many areas of the reservation where there are low aquifer yields. And I think that the 40-acre parcel size between these two options provides a more sustainable and prudent approach. Fourth, as was mentioned, it's more consistent with local management plans. The integrated management plan is a publicly available document, and it's certainly more consistent with that as well as local management plans. And fifth, just on a practical note, I think the 40-acre parcel size is more consistent with the tribe's efforts to implement the compact and with a lot of the work that is being done with respect to the rehabilitation of the Flathead Indian Irrigation Project. A lot of those works that are being done by the tribes at considerable cost. Currently, we have, I believe, on the order of 20 projects, tallying about $50 million, with more projects under development every year. And a lot of those are really intended to protect historic farm deliveries and to maintain the viability of irrigated agriculture on the reservation. And so I think taken within the broader context of the compact, of local management ordinances, and ongoing efforts to implement the rest of the settlement, I think between those two options, the 40-acre parcel size is just more consistent with the data, with science, and with ongoing efforts.
Before you break, we'll take questions, but can we get for the record your name and who you represent?
My apologies to Mr. Chairman. My name is Casey Ryan. I'm a hydrologist with the Confederate Association of Tribes.
Very good. Any questions? Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present, and I appreciate the
And
board's-
since you are here and we are going to be asking for a groundwater presentation, is that something that we would direct to you, or who would we direct to?
Our office could provide that for you.
All right, Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we've got a consensus to get that information for our next meeting. And that would be helpful. Thank you. All right. And realizing we have a lot more to cover, we also agreed that we would in the regular session at 4. So at this point, we need to set a next meeting date. And we have a suggested date of August 21. And then potentially September 5.
This would work for me.
I'm gonna be, Mr. Chairman, I'll be in Washington on the 21st, but I would be able to join the meeting on Zoom.
Okay, that
We'll
works.
have to get Wi-Fi in the hotel.
That works.
I can do August 21, but I'd prefer September 4 instead of 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a Wednesday, they're both Wednesdays, I think.
It would be, yeah. So does the 4th work for staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, I think the board should be fine.
Okay, so next meeting dates, with any other comments on those dates? So are we set on those dates? All right, next meeting dates tentatively are set at August 21 and September 4. So final comments before we adjourn? No.
I'll go ahead and ask, Mr. Chairman, do you want to add another meeting next week? It seems like we have plenty of items. We could at least just address some of the personnel policy stuff.
Chairman, I'm unavailable all week.
Okay,
That's all last week.
Have a few fails.
You are or aren't,
he's not.
Not unavailable,
or not?
not available.
Is it okay to say I could be, but don't want to be? Can I say that? I just did. It's out there. It's out there. It's on the record.
So that, well, we can meet or not meet. That's certainly up to us. I mean, it's just a proposal. I think we've got a lot of things we've got to do and. So do you want to add the 14th? Let me try to narrow this down a bit. If we did the 14th, what would we focus on?
At a minimum, the personnel policies. And I would put an expanded set of those in front of the board.
So maybe make it a one item, one purpose meeting or not?
It may be useful for the board to contemplate changes to your board compensation at that same meeting. And then perhaps, Mr. Chairman, sorry to micromanage here, but then we could just have following meeting entirely on water policy.
Personnel. Haley, is that enough time? I mean, he's suggesting it, we weren't gonna do it that quick anyway, but that's,
I could have something to the board by Monday.
And Mr. Chairman, board members, is it possible to do it on the 15th instead of the 14th?
yeah, I just threw out the 14th because it was a Wednesday.
Can't do Thursday, very good.
What's that?
I can't do
Yeah,
Thursdays. very well.
Thursdays, and then you're out, so we got a couple people out,
Okay.
and that's so 14th.
Thursday next week.
So Haley, I don't wanna over push it here, so if that's not gonna work, we can just hold off.
I can get something to the board by Monday.
Okay. So do we have consensus on the 14th then to look at those two items? Word compensation and personnel policies?
And all of that's in the share file, right? The policies and
Yes, George, and we have your comments, in particular, the most recent set that was added. And what we'll end up doing is adding to that some other topics that are closer to done anyway. But and so you'll see a follow-up from our office on Monday. At the time of posting, that'll add to the laundry list of personnel policy items. We'll go ahead and include some of them like, when I stay in the office. Hopefully we can have something a little better, discussion. Travel policies, anything else that you think of as a priority that wasn't on the original list, you just ping me, we'll go ahead and do that.
thank you.
Higher up.
So once again, adding the 14th, you're out, George, you good?
Yes.
14th, Roger, Georgia,
Sounds good.
even though you don't want
Mhm.
No,
I get that. So, all right, so we are at, August 14 for two topics. Then August 21 and then September 4, next possible dates. All right. Final comments? No, no, no comments, final comments? Final comments, George? Motion to adjourn, the regular session.
Motion to do.
Motion. Second by George, all in favor, say aye.
I
All right.
gotta grab something out of my car. I'll be right.